this is a truly exciting time for me as a digital forensic examiner to work in this space. For someone that presents evidence in court and looks at evidence, uh, especially in the digital realm, there's so many. We could sit here and talk for hours about the possibilities and all the things that we could do with AI and how it can make our lives easier. We could prosecute more offenders. We could more accurately screen cases. But I want to kind of talk about what our research comes out of at Medex Forensics, and we could also put my SWIG-DE hat on for a minute and talk about standards in terms of scientific validity and evidence as we talk about introduction of digital evidence in court. I'm going to kind of scope this, given the I should probably look at time, to authentication issues in the realm of deepfake videos and synthetic media. So being this is a presentation on deepfakes and synthetic media, let's take a look at some examples.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or, how about this, simply, President Trump is a total and complete. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele. This is a dangerous time. Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
That is just one example of which I don't think we need to go into at this point to describe what a deepfake video is, but using AI to manipulate the media into disinformation. Kirk hit on it before with it, just the sheer number of elections and the concerns we're seeing come out every day, whether it be Tom Cruise doing magic tricks on TikTok versus the term cheap fake has been around for a while, but is now in everybody's front living room based upon videos of President Biden recently. This is what is in the mind, and this is what people think about when we talk about disinformation and synthetic media. I'll show you one more really quick one.
I am not Morgan Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Again, hyper-realistic generative AI. The biggest threat and the biggest thing that we're talking about, we think about when we see these videos, is the threat and disinformation online. Everybody thought goes immediately to an election, like was already talked about. And yes, there is an absolute distinct threat of disrupting societal elections and certain beliefs online. But I want to kind of focus us and scope us down, as I say us, in the room, in the criminal justice space, out of the disinformation online, because a lot of this is really, when we talk about disinformation, is attempting to prove something is real or not that we see on a streaming service or already on a newscast. I will tell you, and we could talk a lot more about this later, having worked in the space, researched, published in the space, using the singular streaming video alone, let's say on YouTube, or just looking at what you see on Fox News that has been already processed from the news media, or things that are posted to TikTok or Instagram, using those files alone is not a reliable way for us to determine provenance or authenticity of things that we see online. Just like nobody here, I would assume that nobody here would go into a courtroom, pull up a YouTube URL, hit play, and play evidence directly from YouTube and expect to authenticate that just streaming that data online. Right. So I want to focus us out of that disinformation space and look towards authentication, right? What we do in court, in legal proceedings, how we have specific rules of evidence and how we can meet them, and how we address that when presenting evidence or video or visual evidence in the era of deepfakes and synthetic media. Because while this is a completely different approach than stuff that we see online in the disinformation space, our audience, our judges, our juries, this is what they're going to be inundated with over the next 6 months, year, 2 years, and moving forward, of just how easy it is to manipulate media and make it imperceptible to the human eye, to make everybody so distrustful of what they see that it is within the realm of reason that any evidence that you're trying to submit can be distrusted as well. So we have, and I can go into, but I don't think we need to, distinct federal rules of evidence, state rules of evidence for admissibility. I will note, especially in the current state of concerns over synthetic and deepfake media, is that as we see from, as a digital forensic examiner, as somebody that works in the space, and as a software provider, our users really the need, and everybody's very concerned about detecting deepfakes. And I think that we need to alter our, or detecting synthetic media. We need to alter our thought process and talk about authenticating our media. Because our distinct need right now isn't so much just saying, all right, this may be a deepfake or this might be synthetic. It's proving originality. We see this a lot now within the CSAM prosecutions, where a criminal defendant is claiming that the imagery of their child victim is synthetic. It's not a real victim, and therefore many states cannot be charged. I'm starting to see this in other criminal cases as well. I'm about to retire as a digital forensics examiner detective in Middlesex County, New Jersey. The last case that I basically worked in the prosecutor's office is an authentication exam where a aggravated sexual assault defendant is claiming that the video showing him grabbing a stranger off the street and pulling her into an alleyway is inadmissible, not to wait to admissibility, because that video is a deep fake, completely synthetic generated. And then the onus is left on the prosecutor to prove that that actually video was acquired from a DVR system located in one of the municipalities. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance there, some other factors, but we're seeing these cases pop up again and again, where the claim is that not that the video has been edited, but it is just not real to begin with. It is not what it purports to be to begin with. So now let's go ahead and talk for a second about, and this is kind of, Dr. Coyle touched on this as well, and this came up a little bit with the generative aspect of enhancement or producing different imagery. I just want to touch really quickly, because we shared a great journal article that talks about this. But as we start talking about the use of AI in terms of evaluating provenance, which is basically the life cycle or chain of creation of imagery or media files or audio or video files, of where did this file come from and where did it originate from, we're going to start seeing a lot more AI tools, and we'll start seeing a lot more the concept of AI combating AI or AI combating disinformation. And that presents some interesting challenges when we start thinking about the admissibility of that in legal proceedings. Now, NIST, and I should have shared this one, but I find in the chat, National Institute of Standards Technology actually defines what is called explainable AI. And the law review article that is fantastic, I can't talk about that enough, talks about the premise of explainability. And I think we touched upon this a little bit earlier, is that, and this kind of defines a little more as meeting these four aspects that explainable AI does have to be, not to use the word again, explainable, is that there's an accompanying reason for the output. When we're starting using this in terms of a forensic environment, where they're saying that this video is real, authentic, or has been manipulated or generative, or we're saying that I've analyzed this large data set and this is the interpretation of it that I want to use in court, or even object recognition in video or imagery. That aside from being explainable, has to be understandable. A lot of times we'll see not only black box algorithms, but we'll see them report that in terms of video image analysis, this image, this video is 68% real, without any real context as to what that percentage means.
Yes,
Without context, Okay. Without context, it's very difficult to provide that as meaningful testimony in court. 68% of what? Additionally, we have to be able to, probably most importantly, demonstrate accuracy. How do we show that our system is performing accurately, or to what percentage accuracy? If I submit 99 or I submit 100 images to say that these authentic or these synthetic, how accurate, what is my margin of error? Without these, I think we're going to have a hard time meeting challenges to introduce a lot of this evidence in court. Additionally, we have to have limits. We have to know when we can and when we cannot provide results. So in terms of media authentication, I'm going to run through this really quickly, is the understanding of what we can and what we can't say about our media. So let's take a video file right here, right? And we could all have some impression about it. We could likely say that this possibly is synthetic, but it's very difficult to go into court to say, I think it's synthetic because it looks like it is. How do we quantify that as a forensic community? Currently, we're using semantic metadata values. They're the actual values that say things about this video file. Right now, we have this writing application, SMG781V, would probably be the only indication about where this video file came from. But the rest of these metadata values, take my word for it, is pretty innocuous. It could be from any specific, any actual device. We could see Samsung SMG71V as a possible recorder here. Let's look at this video, separate one. Looks more real, quote unquote real, than the first one. Those metadata values, I have, again, SMG71V, Android version 13, very similar. Take my word for it, everything else is pretty innocuous, would not give me any indication, real or fake, true or not true, authentic or synthetic from there. What if I told you that I took this video and I changed this value, this LAVF 5829.100, and made it into that Samsung to make it look more like that Samsung video? I could easily manipulate that metadata. And how? I could go into the actual data within the file to do that, and I could type in, overwrite those values to make it look like something else, which may take some technical acumen, may take some expertise. Or I could go to ChatGPT and I could ask, how do I change the metadata in my video file to make it look like it says that it's a Samsung original camera device? And ChatGPT provides an output and says that here's the output. This is the software you can go download. This is the code you can copy, hit enter, and the resultant video file will have those same metadata attributes, even though it was synthetically created. I asked the same question, can I use this other tool, open source free tool called EXIF tool, to do the same thing? It says, absolutely, there's the same code for EXIF tool. I actually push a little further and says, there are any other tools? And it gives you 5 more free open source tools that you could use to do that. I do want to highlight that we have shown a lot of promise in what we call structural analysis. So we're able to, and this is the core of our research at Medex Forensics, we're able to deterministically say, based upon the way that the file is created, that this one file is actually generative media, and it was actually not just generative media, that it was actually created by Runway Gen 2, versus this file, which we can say that we know, based upon structure, not relying on metadata values or pixel values, that this file is actually from an S20 FE5G Samsung camera original device. Deterministically, repeatably, explainably. This does not use any generative AI. This uses deterministic matching and some probabilistic results, but those results are absolutely repeatable and explainable. I do want to highlight one last thing before I run out of time, is that I used, in those examples, video files that were created from those devices. So typically in a workflow of, I have a phone, those video files were acquired or extracted or copied directly from the device. I put those same 2 video files to YouTube. All that metadata becomes normalized. The pixel values become normalized. And we lose the ability to take that published video from YouTube and run that same analysis with that realistic, reliable result. The good news is that us in this room as prosecutors do, and many states do have this subpoena or search warrant power. If we go to these platforms like YouTube with legal process, those video files stored on YouTube servers instead of streamed out there are closer to the original. They're still not the same as the original. They're close enough to the original where that structural analysis will hold up. So we do have the ability, it will take a little extra effort to unequivocally, deterministically, quantifiably say this is camera original, or this is synthetic, or this has been edited using just a traditional editing tool like Premiere Pro, Camtasia, Final Cut, etc. I think I have hit 15 minutes exactly. Hopefully I didn't go through it too quickly. There is my contact information. If we have time for questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Do you mind just taking down the,
Yep,
yeah, thank you.
there we go.
So I just have a quick question while the rest of our committee is thinking of their questions, because we'll have more for you. You mentioned a recent case where the defendant said the surveillance video was synthetic. How did you otherwise?
So basically, because structurally, so metadata, pixel values, they change through transmission, they change through purposeful editing. The actual structure, the way that those, not the metadata values themselves, but where those values are stored within a file, are completely unable to be manipulated or changed by the end user. I could change the settings of my DVR, my iPhone, or my Samsung all I want. The way that it encodes is down at a very low hardware level, or even software level. So we know that an iPhone doesn't encode the same way as a Samsung or as an LG, or as something that has been edited or something that's synthetic. We know that a ABC brand DVR encodes differently than another DVR. So we could deterministically prove, based upon this kind of encoding fingerprint, that it came from this specific DVR and has not been edited after. On the contrary, we look at and we see a lot of defense claims of alibi videos. Just basically video on a thumb drive handed to a prosecutor a few weeks prior to trial. Here's my alibi video. And this is one of our earlier cases that we actually helped out with work. And it turns out that somebody took a video editor and said, here is, inserted a black box over the timestamp of this video where that person was at home and they weren't at the scene of it's actually ironically another sexual assault. And they manipulated the time displayed on screen to show that it was at the time of that incident. They did a little other tricks to try to change the date and timestamps. But what they can't do is say that change the way that Adobe Premiere Pro encodes that video. So we know 100% deterministically that has been coded by Premiere Pro versus whatever DVR it came from. So it works both ways.
And you had to testify in both of those instances?
So the one for the latest one with the claim of deepfake is that case is still pending court. I just completed that exam last week. The other one that I described, our user of course we don't, I kind of hate to talk about the actual software aspect of it, but we do produce a tool, and the user that had done that exam, we helped them out. They were the one that's provided that testimony.
Brandon, I assume SWGD is coming up with standards for this. Can you kind of give us a little bit of idea of where they are?
So SWGD is actually starting out on our next in-person meeting, which I'll plug. The registration is currently open for. I'll drop a link in the chat. We're in desperate need. We're always looking for great attorney involvement in the creation of our best practices and standards. In the September meeting, we will be embarking with an ad hoc committee devoted toward AI and forensic science. And the goals of that are not so much to address how we deploy AI in case review or what AI is, but is to really talk about how do we use AI in probabilistic reporting in a forensic environment that's suitable for court. So I think it would be a very interesting topic if anybody wants to participate in that. I would anticipate that we're not going to see results of that in September. It will probably take some months after and multiple meetings and revisions to get there. But I'm very excited for where that's going. First time I actually heard about this was about a year ago at a conference. Somebody had told me, hey, we have this case where the defense is claiming the CSAM imagery is synthetic. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard of that before. And then 20 minutes later at the same conference, somebody came up to the booth that we're at and gave us the exact same story. And now I will tell you, over the past 6 months, between users and people that find us online, it's almost at a weekly basis. The floodgates are starting to open.
Joe, you're from New Jersey also, have you seen anything?
I had to step back for a charging decision, but I do have one or two cases where they are asserting, oh, well, how do we know that how do we know it's real children in the images? Which, by the way, I see a lot of potential from both a research standpoint and from a challenge to Ashcroft versus Free Speech Association, which prevented charging virtual pornography. For those states that have an AI statute that's separate and distinct from the child porn statute, or just a separate statute itself, one of the problems I think we need to look at is the general public and most people can't distinguish between real and fake. So why do we separate the two? And I think there's going to be some investigative challenges absent either having this technology and looking at the file structure in determining that. So I agree with Brandon. I think it's going to be an interesting time. It is coming up more and more, but I also think that over time we're going to develop more and more solutions to the issue.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, they've been using AI since it's been available. We watched when I joined the service in the late '90s, as technology was advancing so quickly, they adopt it faster than law enforcement and the public safety justice realm does. So they absolutely are, and whether it's nation state and threat actors, or if it's child pornography groups, and the assumption is they absolutely are. They have no boundaries, right? They're not limited to compliance and governance and all the things that we are. But kind of to the overarching point is that's why we got to get these tools in the hands of investigators as well, to accelerate and fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy, sorry, go ahead.
I will note, just as this is an emerging thing, like any other digital forensics tool or anything else out there, whatever you're going to deploy, whatever you're going to, go down the path of working on, I would say the biggest thing I'd say is test your tool to make sure that those results, oh, look at that, has a little, and to make sure it actually functions appropriately to meet your needs, and make sure that the personnel is available to actually give that testimony in court. Because a lot of times we see people rush out to buy the latest technology, realize that it doesn't always, latest and greatest doesn't always mean legally admissible, or somebody that's able to articulate their findings.
Right. Well, it seems like there's two buckets of things with AI. One is, how can it help us do our jobs more efficiently and effectively, especially given lack of personnel? And the second is, how do we combat criminal uses of AI? I mean, it's two sides of the coin that require a tremendous amount of exploration, and it's a growth industry for sure. Kathy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, and I apologize for my voice, when you were talking just right now about, the good use and the bad use of it. It's almost like the beginning of even when computers themselves became more, involved in our daily lives. It's made a lot of things easier, being able to type out papers and, I remember, I won't age myself, but computers are really becoming more commonplace in high school and college, and so it made a lot of things easier. But then again, it gave another avenue, a whole other avenue for criminality. So it's technology. I mean, even just the beginning of computers and technology themselves, it will likely follow those two paths, and just kind of another step in technology that has the good and the bad.
Yeah, Christine, you're not going to prevent it, right? Like, think about like the automobile. You're not going to prevent, that being used for bank robberies or, for drunk drivers, right? Like, it's there. Criminals are going to use it. We see it all the time. Nation state use it. It's again emphasizing public-private partnership, and why you guys aren't on an island. You should be working across industry, and everyone should be kind of working collectively on these things.
Yeah.
I think, like, just real quick, there's, with a lot of the digital evidence that we've, had coming out in the last 10, 15 years or so. I do feel though that this is the perhaps the most complex, the most in need of expertise and specialized training and that kind of thing. I think to me it seems more difficult to wrap my mind around than just, data being pulled from a cell phone. Certainly than, data that we can get from a search warrant return from Facebook and things like that. This seems a lot more like a big, more significant technological and complex step that just absolutely screams for what Brandon is doing, what Swiggy is doing, what all of these people are doing to understand it.